Welcome to Action Hour. It's Lindsey Baker. I have such exciting news. WHA has partnered with WindStar Cruises to bring you easy vegan travel. And I have Lisa McCarl here today with me, as well as Wanda Huberman, who are with this wonderful organization. Ladies, thank you so much for being here today. And I understand you have some breaking news. So, Wanda, why don't you go ahead and tell our audience what it is?
Lindsay, first, thank you so much for inviting me. And this breaking news was yesterday, so I am indeed thrilled. We have been partnering with WindStar for a while now, a couple of years at least. And just yesterday, they said that our upcoming trip in 2025, February 2025, to Tahiti on their beautiful Star Breeze motor yacht that is small enough to be intimate with 312 people. I'm building up because it's that exciting that they're going to give us a chance to fill it with all vegans. There will be, just so all the food, all the treats, everything on the ship will be able to serve people that are whole food, plant exclusive, people that want salt, oil free, people that want gluten free, people that are a little bit newer and just want to make sure they're vegan. We have an
Right. And
amazing
we do want to
opportunity.
stress that you offer SOS free salt, oil, and sugar for people that are not familiar with it. I want to show folks some of the travel destinations you go to. Wow, and to imagine that those trips can be all vegan. Wanda, why don't you tell us a little bit about how this all came about, this partnership with WindStar?
Okay, well, I'm going to go back, if it's okay, a little bit further.
Sure.
So, I'm the executive director of the National Health Association, NHA, and we put on annual conferences. And at one of those conferences was a member of ours, Lisa McCarl, who is now a travel agent. And she said, would you be interested in doing plant based travel? I knew for a fact that there were lots of our members that wanted to be able to travel this way and didn't want to have to figure out all the logistics of traveling, especially internationally, with food. So I said, absolutely. So we started doing this probably 3 years ago. And along the way, we have been working really closely with all of the management staff at WindStar, the chefs, and they have just knocked it out of the ballpark. I work with chefs all year long, and they just got it, and they're willing to tweak it and work with us and meet our needs. And they've used a lot of our recipes that I provided. And so everywhere on the ship that there is food served, they offered amazing whole food, plant exclusive options that are prepared without any added salt, oil, or sugar. And they did what's hard to do. They learned to use spices and herbs, and and local food from the culture of where we're traveling. And so we get to taste the food that you would typically find in that particular culture, but it's veganized and it's just packed with flavor. That's the hard thing to do. And
Yes,
it's
I wanted
beautiful.
to go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish.
was just gonna say it's beautiful, and you don't leave a meal hungry. You know, how many times do you go out to eat and you get a vegan kind of gourmet presentation? It's like, well, that was an appetizer, and that's all you
Yeah.
get.
I want to get back to a little bit more about a couple of things you mentioned, like the influence of the culture and the respect for the culture and the sustainability. Our audience is very much about conservation and, of course, plant-based and vegan. We are vegan. Um, and so that's a real important thing, the carbon footprint. So
Right.
let's give them, and I want to go back even a little further. We'll talk about it possibly a little later about your organization. But for now, let's talk about the sustainability aspect. And I know Lisa had sent me this slide, so maybe she wants to address that part of it.
Absolutely. Yes, WinStar is one of the leaders in the field of travel sustainability. And during the pandemic, all of their ships went to dry dock and they replaced engines, which is tremendously expensive. And this was something they did voluntarily to reduce their carbon footprint. And then also there are onboard initiatives, and they increase recycling. And then also there's a farm to table element where they really stay close to local farms and provision their ships from with local produce. And they also have a coral reef program that's fabulous. And let's see.
I'm glad you brought that coral reef program up, because I have a video. Let's show the audience.
Yes.
This is amazing.
Very
And then you
exciting.
can talk about it more for us. Just last week we did a show about Captain Paul Watson, and he had just said, if the oceans die, we all die. So we have covered that before. So people know how important it is to have the coral reefs and how integral they are. So go ahead, Lisa. Go ahead and talk a little bit
Well,
more.
I thought that video highlighted the program well with the coral reefs. The other thing that I've learned in being on the bridge is there is a designated person as a spotter, so that they're always looking for the animal life in the ocean and are very protective. And their small ships are very maneuverable, so they are tremendously responsible with that respect as well. We've just been delighted with all of their conservation efforts. And we also partnered with Lindblad Expeditions, and they have phenomenal sustainability programs.
That's wonderful that you are taking that so much into consideration. I know there are so many vegans that have been vegan for a long time that need this sort of travel option, and the whole thing of feeling, you go on a trip and you want to feel like you're going to have a good time. But if you have a conscience, we can't deny that we are barreling towards the sixth mass extinction, and things are very, very serious.
Yes.
So we have to take that into consideration. Why don't you each weigh in on that, if you would? Maybe Wanda first.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it is one of the things we've looked at, and it's why we are staying with smaller cruise lines, and why to date Lindblad and WinStar have met that need. And just like we have to meet with the chefs and find somebody that will cook this food in a way that is inviting and people will want to come back, we're looking at their conservation programs, whether it's giving back to the villages, whether WinStar had an active or not WinStar, Lindblad had an active program where they were picking up plastics and recycling. And when you got on board, every person that came on board, they gave a stainless steel water bottle, and they had water stations on board because they're not going to contribute to more plastic waste in our society.
Right.
What? Great. And let's have Lisa, if you want to add in anything on that.
Absolutely. And WinStar also has glass carafes in the room, and they provide the water for the guests so that there is not a need for any plastic water bottles. And one thing I will say, I've been a travel agent for 20 years, and sometimes guests on small ships are surprised that the price is different than the larger ships. And small ships are a little bit more expensive. The experience is phenomenally different, and small groups, you just learn so much and build friendships, and it's just a wonderful way to travel. But I will say that sometimes there's a little bit of sticker shock associated with a small ship.
Would you like to state a price range, or is that something you'd like people to?
Each cruise has its own individual price range. And one of the things that Wanda and I do, we poll the membership and we find out where do you want to go. And then we book it early so that it's the very lowest price it's ever going to be. And so we've booked trips up through July and August of 2025. And our price is not going to change. And cruise pricing is demand-based, much like airline pricing. And so as the ship fills, the price will typically increase, whereas our groups have the same price. And so by the time we went on our Alaska cruise in August of 2022, the same staterooms were sometimes $1,000 or $1,500 a person more. So our rates tend to hold very, very well. So we're delighted to be able to offer the best possible prices. And as a group, at a repeat group, we do get a very nice discount.
That's wonderful. So you try to make it as affordable as possible, but people have to understand that this is quite a different from going on a huge cruise. I'm not going to name one because I don't want to be disrespectful, but there are many of them. And I frankly am not as comfortable. I've been on a lot of different boat experiences. I love boating. So that's another thing I love about you guys. But you know, it's a whole different experience with, like you say, you're in a smaller group. Let's show some of the critters they might. I thought that was just so amazing that you could see the humanity of those animals, if you will. And maybe you could each talk about it. I know it's a concern of vegans. You know, when you travel, you want to leave, like we say, zero footprint if possible. Of course, not possible, but, you know, respect for the animals and the wildlife. You want to each address that, if you would?
Yes, I'd be happy to start. Galapagos has very strict regulations, and so it looks untouched, and everybody is expected to leave nothing but footprints. So that is phenomenal, and I really enjoyed the videos of the creatures. Some of the most dramatic moments for us was having a Galapagonian penguin just dart past us when we were snorkeling. And it was just amazing. And the iguanas, the marine iguanas that swim by us. So the experience is just phenomenal. And it's in small groups and it's very regulated. And even on a 100-person ship, which we were in Galapagos, we were not allowed to go as an entire group when we did our hikes. So they would take small groups and very closely monitored. So I'm very respectful of the way that the Galapagos Islands has monitored tourism.
That's amazing. How about you, Wanda?
I agree. That's the other thing with these small groups. Both Lindblad, which travel with National Geographic expedition experts, and WinStar travel with their own expedition experts. They give I don't know what it's called, Lisa, a pre-talk the night before, so you know what you're going to expect. and you go out and there was never anything offensive. I saw Tom had mentioned about elephant rides. I can't imagine that that would be an option. We were on these deserted islands in Galapagos and could just sit in front of an owl. And these animals have never been harmed. There's a protection there. And so they taught about it. Or when we were in Alaska, WinStar did a lot of teaching, their expedition experts, about how glaciers could one day be extinct if we don't do something to protect that. And they're all working to keep those options available for us by the way they practice their business.
Let's talk a little bit about the vegan food, because that certainly is going to help the environment a lot. So how did you come about convincing a luxury cruise line to become, veganized, let's say?
I'll start with that. It started when I actually go on cruises and work with their culinary directors to see if they can accommodate our plant-based groups. And in March of 2020, I took my first WinStar cruise, and it was a Panama Canal cruise. And I talked to the chef. He didn't have any advance notice. And I explained how to prepare foods without salt, oil, or sugar, and plant exclusive. And he did a phenomenal job. And he had a very creative way of serving it. And I said, well, I really think I can bring back 40 people. Would you be able to do this for 40 people? And they said, absolutely. So when Wanda told me that she would like to start booking an Alaska cruise in January of 2021, in the middle of the shutdown, I said, Wanda, we might get 3 or 4 cabins. I wouldn't expect a lot. And she said, well, let's just throw it out there. I'm getting a lot of questions. And the very first day we opened the cruise, we sold 30 staterooms. It was unbelievable. And then the next day we did it again. And so we got WinStar's attention right away. They let us have their largest group in history. They found that it was very, very difficult and impossible to sustain the split menu that they had. So they then limited our groups on the motor yachts, which hold 312 people, to just 50 people. And they said that way we can create private dining experiences for your group with beautiful plant-based buffets. And that now they've added a plant-based menu onto their regular menu so that people can dine anywhere in the ship and eat a whole food plant-based diet.
Let me ask you a couple of questions to clarify. So you're saying that WinStar currently has vegan options available on all of their cruises or not?
Starting June 1st, they have cross-trained all of their chefs to prepare whole food plant-based meals without added salt, oil, or sugar. And they're going to have a rotating menu of about 10 to 12 items per day. And so they have items in what's called their yacht club, where you can go and have cafe style meals. And then they have buffets, and they label the food. Some people do not want to eat many nuts. Some people don't want gluten. And so they have fabulous WinStar NHA labels on the food. And that's your room service menu.
Yes, yes. I'm showing some of the menus here. I think it's really important. The other question I had, and I don't like this question, but I have to ask it. If somebody went on the vegan cruise with a mate, would that person be accommodated for regular food, or is it just?
So the goal are on our groups of 50, absolutely, because socialization is important, and that's part of a healthy lifestyle. And we love all people. So our group is 50 whole food plant-based people, but they can bring non-plant-based friends. And what we find is typically the plant-based people might either just dine in the seated dining room in the I won't call it a formal dining room because it's not formal, but sometimes they'll go through our plant-based buffet because we'll have a more diverse selection, and they'll take that to the dining room, it's the amphora is the dining room. And so, but we're hopeful that Tahiti could be entirely plant-based. But as Wanda was describing it, they have given us 3 months to get enough of the ship full with completely plant-based people to lead them to make a decision to either make the ship completely plant-based, or as a switch around, they would put the people who eat animal products in a smaller dining room, and they would serve meat in a smaller dining room. So usually that's where we are. And they said it's going to be the reverse. You guys are going to be, it's going to be a plant-based theme cruise regardless. And depending on how far we fill the ship with plant-based. And so I actually have discouraged people for this Tahiti cruise to not book right now if they are traveling with non-plant-based guests. But for Ireland and Scotland, absolutely bring your non-plant-based friends. And for Greece to Israel.
Yeah, and they need to contact you directly in order to book this. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm the person that calls in and gets all the special group rates.
So this is really customized luxury and not really the cost of luxury. I know what it costs to rent a small yacht for your family, and I know what it costs to go on some of these smaller cruises. And this is so customized and amazing. I love the whole thing of it. We do have a lot of other things we want to talk about the conference, and we want to give people a little bit more background. But I do have one more question, because I'm going to ask Wanda. This is rare, SOS compliant, let alone vegan compliant, but let alone that. Please talk about that a little bit, because I'm sure people like to know, why is this important, SOS?
Oh, for sure. So oil, I would start with oil. I think all of the leading doctors, from Caldwell Esselstyn to Dr. Furman to Dr. Columbus Batiste, any of the cardiologists will say that oil is 100% fat without any nutritional value, regardless of whether it's coconut oil or the very best olive oil. It's not doing your body any good, and it's not needed. You teach them how to cook. So we just had some sessions where we talked about how we cook this way. And I was doing conferences sooner, so I have had the privilege over years of working with chefs that prepare for 300 at my conference. And so I assured the chefs that it could be done. And we teach them how to do condiments and, how to have some spices. So there's a company that I work with. I introduced them to vendors. So I introduced them to the vendor that I work with to get salt-free seasonings, and they source it. They are so flexible. They are so open and so committed to doing this without damaging their reputation of excellence. And they're doing it, and they've got it down pat now. And to be able to just pick up the culture of wherever we're traveling and add that flavor to it is amazing.
It is amazing. Maybe we'll move on a little bit to the conference, but I want Lisa to have a chance to talk about anything we might have not covered on the cruise.
Well, some of our people have come to us because of health challenges, and we even have a member of our group who was on a heart transplant list, and a physician at the transplant center took him aside and said, "Don't tell anybody I said this, but if you go, please try a plant-based diet. Please just try a whole food plant-based without salt, oil, or sugar." And he recommended Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn's book. And that gentleman is hiking the highest hills with us now. He had a much lower cardiac output, and within 3 months, he was removed from the transplant list. And we also have people in our groups who have lost 100 pounds and successfully maintained that for years. So we have some amazing stories. And even on our last Galapagos trip, a staff member came up to me and said, "I was just diagnosed with prediabetes. And I'm watching all of you who have taken this huge step in changing your lifestyle for health, to promote health. And that's when it really is meaningful, when you can set an example for others and show them it can be delicious and
right.
wonderful.
And I wanted to, before you go on, mention that you are an RN.
I
You
am.
have a story. Why don't you give us quickly your story a little about your background and how you got into this, and then we're going to move on to.
Okay, I worked in several different ways, but I worked open heart recovery, and then I went into hospital administration, and I loved my nursing career. When I was in hospital administration, I had 3 children in 2 years, and it was extremely difficult to work full time. So I backed off to part time, and then I was able to stay home with my children for their middle school and high school years. And so when I told my husband it was time for me to get back to work and I was ready to go back to hospital administration, he said, please don't, we'll never get to travel together. So I said, oh, well, maybe I'll take some travel courses. And that was more than 20 years ago. And I got all of my credentials as a travel agent. And we started doing trips with our kids. And then their friends and the parents wanted to come. And then my friends, as they started retiring, asked me to plan their group trips. And it evolved. And then when I went to Wanda's conference, I had previously said I'd never do plant-based travel because there's just too many people that eat slightly differently and are very committed to either no nuts or no white potatoes, but they'll eat sweet potatoes or lots of potatoes. So there were so many different preferences. I didn't know how anyone could accommodate that. And when I went to my first NHA conference and I looked at the buffet that Wanda arranged, and it was everything you could ever want, and it allowed everyone to have a just tremendously diverse diet, which we know is great for our gut health and also our cardiac health and our brain health. And I said, Wanda, if we can do this on a ship, we've got it. We can take people anywhere in the world.
That's amazing. Wanda, why don't you weigh in? You look so excited. I have to let you speak. You look like you're bursting. Go ahead.
Well, it was just that simple that we just kind of step out and took a leap. And I think having the experience of working with chains like Hilton and Marriott and Holiday Inn and everywhere that I've been hosting conferences over the years gave me the confidence to talk to these chefs. And what I learned is I can't provide this information to the management, expect them to provide it. They had to give us direct access to the chef. Lisa certainly started that by going on the cruise and talking to the chefs. And it was just like anything else, clear communication, and that we have so many people. These cruises are selling out faster than we ever imagined, and the demand is there. People are grateful to be able to travel. And like Lisa said, so many of the members in our organization have unfortunately not realized how important their health was till they started to lose their health. And then they realized what could happen when they went vegan or whole food plant-based. And we have been teaching it for so many years that it's astounding. I'm like you with traveling. You know, it was, even though I know how to do it, if I wanted to go to Alaska, I was going to rent a motorhome, provision it, and do it all on my own. I've done that for 30 years. I'm ready to just go enjoy exotic travel. And I think
it's time for vegans to have luxury travel, and you're going to make it happen. I do want to move on to the next subject, the conference, so we don't run out of time. We're actually 3/4 through the show. So I don't want to run out of time here, and I want you to be able to talk about it. But one last question on this subject, and again, at the end, I'll give you a couple minutes if there's anything we forgot. What about if people want to book a cruise? How long? When's the next openings? Let's just throw that out there.
Okay. Yes. Our Greece to Israel trip is fully booked, and we have 3 back-to-back Panama cruises. When WinStar said we can't accommodate these huge groups, but when we fly our chefs, they fly extra chefs because our food prep is more extensive. And when we fly chefs, we'll leave them on the ship if you want to do back-to-back groups. So we have 3 back-to-back groups in Panama, and they are all sold out. So we're on wait list for that. Our next group is August 2024, and that is Iceland. And I think we can maybe manage 4 to 6 more people on that. And then so our Tahiti, we just opened last week to Life members, because we give our Life members first priority, because we have a couple of categories of stateroom that sell out quickly. In fact, 2 are already sold out. And we have booked probably 40 on our Tahiti cruise already. And some of the staterooms are getting full. So that some categories are completely sold out. So it's a beautiful ship. You can't go wrong with any room on that ship. They're all, it's the Windstar motor yacht that holds 312. They're all 270 square feet for the regular cabins. There are also premium cabins that aren't in our group rates, but they're lovely. We frequently have members in our group book the classic or the owner suites. And anyway, so we have Tahiti, and then I'm actually going on a river cruise next week, and I'll be working with the culinary director of the company and the vice president of the company to see if we can start offering river cruises to our groups. So it's in the works. We certainly have been trying for this for a long time. I wanted to take.
How long would a river cruise be? What would a river?
Any number, but they're typically a week. Okay. So and so at any rate, we're hoping to add river cruises. They have smaller kitchens, so it's even more challenging. And then when I get back from the cruise, we'll be opening our Ireland and Scotland group that we just kind of posted on our Facebook page. And that's something I'd like to mention. We do have a National Health Association whole food plant-based travel Facebook page, and it's a private group, but we'd love to invite all of our whole food plant-based friends and encourage them, and especially since we're trying to fill this ship for Tahiti now. So that is on Facebook, and you can either Google it or you can find me on Facebook.
We'll put links up at the top of this. Great. At the end of the broadcast, we will have all the links you want us to share. We will be sharing. Your Facebook link will be great, so people can find out what's going on. We need to move on a little bit now to the conference. You want to talk about the conference, so I'll give that to Wanda. And and I'd love to get a little bit more back into the history of health science organization and all of, the background from 1948. You guys are legit, and we wanted people to find out how much they can learn from you. I think it's incredible. So go ahead, Wanda, give us a little bit of that.
Thanks, Lindsay. So yes, the organization was founded in 1948 by a group of doctors that knew clinically that they were reversing disease in their patients and the health benefits that were coming from a whole food, plant exclusive diet without using any added salt, oil, or sugar. So in 1949, they hosted their first conference and then just kept growing. And my husband was raised from birth. He was born in 1951. Just a few years after this organization started. And his parents have been going to it since he was a baby. He first spoke at 10 years old in 1961 at the conference. And the whole purpose is back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s when I started, you didn't have the internet and all these resources and all these books behind me as to how you could do this. So all of the leading doctors were coming to our conference and they were teaching. The conferences were 5 days back then, and they were 500 people. Now everybody's so busy, nobody wants to take 5 days off typically. We try and keep the prices down. So now we've evolved. The name was the American Natural Hygiene Society, meaning the hygiene being the science of health. That became so confusing that eventually they changed it to the National Health Association. We are international. We have members from around the world, and we're a nonprofit. We don't sell any products. We sell our membership, which is only $35 a year if you're in the US, and $55 a year outside the US. Our goal is just one of education, to help people learn to do this, to create a sense of community. One of the things you get with your membership that you can see on my desk is a quarterly magazine. It's 40 pages long, advertisement free, full of content. It'll be an interview from a leading doctor, important science-based information. It's not a recipe magazine, but there's always a recipe section. Testimonials. I think the gentleman Lisa was talking about that avoided a heart plant was one of our testimonials. And we've archived. You become a member, we've archived these magazines for over 40 years.
Wow.
And you can go into the archives and you can just read about any subject you could imagine. And we even have ebooks about it. So one of the unique things that's beyond whole food, plant-based, beyond veganism, is in 1948, these doctors were clinically learning how they could expedite health recovery through medically supervised water-only fasting. So Dr. Goldhammer runs the largest center in the world that I'm aware of, called True North in Santa Rosa. He will be presenting at the conference this year about 40 years of scientific evidence on how medically water supervised fasting, along with lifestyle change, can reverse and prevent so many diseases that are common today. So I'm proud of the organization. I retired from my career of 30 years to become the executive director in hopes that I'll be attending the 100th anniversary. We have a health, we've grown this year. We now have a podcast, the NHA Health Science Podcast, and we have our magazine, and we have.
Now, do members get access to the podcast, or is that additional?
Oh yeah, it's right there. The page you're showing, you click on that, you can watch it live, or not live, you watch the recording, or any streaming station that you listen to your podcast, you will find it.
You have a new member, me. I'm going to join as soon as this is over.
Welcome.
I think it's incredible. I think
Thank
what you're
you.
doing is incredible. And, you know, to get this kind of information, and like you said before, nobody realizes or appreciates their health until they get sick. And then the whole thing changes. So this is great what you're doing, offering these services to folks. Maybe talk a little bit about the virtual conference and how people can join, and you know what the status is, why it's only virtual now option.
Right. Well, it will be a hybrid conference, and the virtual will be live streamed from the in-person conference. I've moved to a larger facility this year because we have sold out every year. I was expecting the facility could hold 400, but we do amazing AV. I hired 2 AV teams, so it's a very professional appearance when we have these leading speakers and what we can present to the virtual audience. So we can hold 350. I have had a few cancellations. I can probably handle 5 more reservations if somebody wants to come to Cleveland, June 23rd to June 25th. Meet these doctors in person, see the meals we're talking about. If Dr. Colin Campbell has a seat at his dinner table, you'll sit down and have dinner with Dr. Campbell.
Wow. Should they contact you?
Yes, that email or on my website. It's as long as that registration is up, I'm taking live tickets.
Guess what? We're going to your website right now. So if you want to direct me around it.
So when you go to conference, click on the button for conference and 2023 conference. Then you can see the registration. And when you page down, you will see that you can apply for the virtual conference. You can apply for the in-person conference. You click here. We've taken over the whole hotel. There will be that whole hotel will be vegan that weekend.
That's wonderful.
And we provide a children's program. We would love to have young families being able to learn this, and young children. So all of it's right there on that page. You can do that, or you can email me for questions. I appreciate that you're showing this amazing list of speakers and celebrating our 75th. It's just a weekend of
talk about a couple of the speakers, if you would. Tell us a little bit of who they'll be meeting and why it's so important to learn about.
Dr. T. Colin Campbell is legendary. He wrote the China study. He's 89 years old and still enthusiastically spreading the word about why a whole food, plant-based diet without oil is so important. Dr. Kim Williams is a leading cardiologist. He's going to talk about heart disease and reversal. It's not a myth. We watch it all the time. Dr. Joel Fuhrman is a New York Times bestselling author of Eat to Live, and his most recent book, Eat for Life, brings together the science. Gene Bauer is the founder of Farm Sanctuary.
Yeah.
He's going to tell us why animal compassion and eating this way is so important. Dr. Alan Goldhammer is the founder of True North Health Center. He's the one that's going to give us 40 years of research information. This is all evidence-based. It's, they will back up with science. Dr. Stefan Esser is amazing. He is a Harvard-trained orthopedist, and his grandfather was one of the founders. He is fourth-generation vegan, raising his 3 children vegan. And on the bottom where you see Dylan Holmes, Brittany Giroudi, Tom, and Tammy Kramer, they all have their own YouTube channels, web pages, Facebook pages. They're teaching people how to do this in a way that you can still get through a busy day.
And that's amazing, because this information, if you are a podcaster, or like, for example, my activism is message making and social media and podcasting. And there's a lot of folks like myself that could benefit greatly. And that science-based information, science-backed information is so important for credibility, but also when you're trying to win an argument with a non-vegan. So we're just about to the end. Is there any, I'm going to give you each 5 minutes or so to talk about anything you might want to talk about. I'll start with Lisa. Go ahead.
Thank you, Lindsey. And I did want to mention that many people do start their plant-based journey because of health reasons. And then as they become more and more educated, certainly also many of them and us are ethical vegans and really do have the compassion for animals and the desire to create a safer planet and more sustainable planet. So it really does, there's many ways to enter plant-based eating, and we find that as we become educated, our eyes are really open to all of the important reasons to be plant-based.
Great. And Wanda, how about you?
Yeah, Lindsey, can you see why I love partnering with Lisa McCarl? She's just
absolutely. Yeah.
She said it so well. I'm going to take a minute and answer a couple questions from Tom Vincel. I think I'm saying his name right. And Tom, you're asking us to do live segments from the conference. That is what our virtual conference is about. The entire thing will be live streamed on a platform where we're going to let our virtual audience participate in our Q&A. There will be somebody to share your questions. You will get even more information than some of our people in person, because when we break for meals, we're still going to have content going out live to our virtual audience. And you asked a question about food being offered. Is it the Impossible Burger or Morningstar? Because we're salt, oil, sugar free, our stuff is largely unprocessed. You won't find any of those processed items that are great if you're entering the vegan world. It's better than a hamburger, but they're not great for your health. So we encourage people to do the very best that they can. We hope as you learn this information, whether it's for your health, the health of animals, or the health of the planet, that there are things you can't unlearn. And once you know it, once you know better, you want to do better. And we just want to make this information as accessible as possible. We're available to anybody who wants to reach out to us. My husband, Mark, and I are both doing podcasts quite regularly. So reach out, let us know what questions. And I'm so glad to be able to introduce everybody. The best thing I hear about after doing a podcast is we're so glad we've heard of you. And the hardest thing for my heart is, how is it we've never heard of you? And I work 7 days a week trying to make sure people know about us. And I'm sure there's somebody on this podcast that has not heard of us before, or on this live stream.
You're right. And the thing is, we do try to broadcast out to a very broad audience. we don't want to be in an echo chamber on Unchained TV. We want to reach the non-vegans. So, so that's awesome. We totally agree with
And
everything.
I want to break down those silos and let everybody know they're welcome at the National Health Association. Everybody's on their individual journey. You go on these plant-based ships. Some people have been doing it their whole life. Some people are new. Some enjoy a glass of wine. Some don't. We are not the food police. We are the food educators.
I love that.
And everyone's welcome.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Well, ladies, thank you so much for being on today. And I love this whole idea. Yeah, you guys are great.
Please join us.
Yes, yes. I'm going to look into this right away. I know my husband, when I actually did show him the shows I'm working on, and he's very interested in the cruises. So, and he would be one of the ones we want to convert. He's not vegan yet. So.
Well, that's not our mission. We don't try to convert people on the ship. We really try to just enjoy one another.
Yes, I understand that as well. Yeah. Okay, well, great. Thank you for being on, and we'll see you next week, guys, with Action Hour. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to download Unchained TV. Just go to watch.unchainedtv.com and download the app for free. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye, ladies. Thanks for being on.
Thank you.